Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about something very important, very close to my heart also, and that is about the concept of Islamophobia. Even if you listen to the statements of our Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, he has always emphasized on this very, very important issue. And unfortunately, whether we like it or we don't, this is something that has become a huge issue for the Muslims, and not only in the Muslim countries, but also in places like Europe for that matter, United States of America, and so many other areas. Now, another concept is that which in fact the mainstream media has linked it with the pandemic. I'm talking about the COVID-19. How is it linked? Why is it increasing this concept of Islamophobia during these times? And on top, when you talk about countries like France for that matter, or Charlie Hebdo, or some other people who in fact were a part of that campaign to malign the Muslims in general and Islam in particular. Why is that so? And then when you talk about Islamophobia, a lot of rightist parties all over the world, they are also thriving on this particular concept. We talk about our neighbors, India for that matter, and interestingly, this is something which is very important, that anti-Muslim sentiments are prevailing out there. Not only prevailing, but I would say that the Muslims living out there are under extreme danger. A lot of BJP leaders very openly, they have criticized the Muslims and they have said that they should be eliminated. So I'm not talking about just the removal of the Muslims from a certain land, perhaps killing of the Muslims. And if you look at the latest statement of none other than one of the veteran Indian actor, Nasiruddin Shah, that tells you the story about it. What exactly is happening and why is it happening? That is actually $1 million question. And then the fundamental freedoms of Muslims under threat, whether to pray or to open up a mosque and so on and so forth. But having said that, let's not only blame the non-Muslims for that. I think the Muslims should equally be blamed for it, because when you look at this word Muslim or this phenomena of Islam, are they interlinked? Are we actually following the practices of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is this what is important? When we talk about extremism, I think Pakistan, whether we like it or we don't, whether we believe it or we don't, the reality is that we have also become an extremist state, I would say. The recent developments which we have witnessed, I think, is something to ponder upon. Killing of the Sri Lankan or otherwise. And then whenever we try to in fact talk about this concept of blasphemy, we are told not to talk about it because this is something very sensitive. Whether it is sensitive or not, but at least the concept should be made very clear, that what exactly does it mean, what sort of sentiments are there, why do we get hurt. We all love our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we would not like to hear anything about him or any other Sahaba for that matter. But again, having said that, as we say that you can't clap with one single hand, you need both the hands. So where did we go wrong and what exactly is happening? This is going to be our today's topic. Let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us on my right is Dr. Farah, expert in foreign affairs. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. And we also have with us Mr. Imran Sandhu, a known religious scholar. Pleasure to have you, Imran bhai. Thank you very much for your presence. And on Skype from London, UK, we have with us Dr. Shahid Qureshi Saab, who is a senior analyst of the London Post. Thank you very much, Shahid Saab, for your time as well. Now, let me start off from you, ma'am, talking about the Islamophobia concept. Let's go back year 2001, prior to 9/11. Things were very different. And certainly we got to know that there were 1920 hijackers. They ended up hijacking 4 planes and 2 of them rammed into the Twin Towers. One was perhaps shot down or went down and one hit the Pentagon. Now that was the beginning of this concept of anti-Muslim campaign, I would say. And despite the fact that no one was a Pakistani or an Afghani, they were all perhaps Saudis. But at the end of the day, ma'am, things really went from bad to worse for the Muslims. Whether you talk about the revenge of the Americans in the Middle East or in Afghanistan, they have tried and tested all their, I would say, arsenal as far as the bombs are concerned, whether you talk about the mother of all bombs or daisy cutters and so on and so forth. The point is, that Muslims were the target. And prior to that, I would also try to make a point here that Muslims fought amongst each other, whether it was Syria or Iran or Iraq or perhaps other Muslim countries. They ended up killing the Muslims from both the sides, whether Shia versus Sunni or Sunni versus Shia, and so forth. To be very honest, now it is very difficult to understand who is right and who is wrong, because if you look at the concept of ISIS, for that matter, they also represent one form of the religion, but that is not acceptable to majority. But that is what it has been narrated, that is what we see, the killings of the innocent people by these ISIS characters and so on and so forth. Let's start off from there, ma'am.
Thank you for bringing this important discussion here. I think we need to look at who created these monsters, like the terrorists and all the extremist groups. The West is behind it. I was reading a book by one of the prominent writers. So he mentioned that the West is targeting Muslims, and after that is going to be China. We have seen post 9/11 that it's everywhere Muslims who are becoming a target of extremism, intolerance and everything. So their first agenda is achieved and they're moving on to the next target, that is China. Before 9/11, Muslims were never ever considered extremists or terrorists or militants in the world. And this confusion of religious understanding, as you mentioned, that whatever the notion of religion these extremist groups are promoting, it is leading towards chaos and confusion, whether they are right or wrong, and whether we should agree to the type of narration or explanation or interpretation that they are providing is right or wrong. This is all coming from the larger goal of the West, that they try to malign Muslims and to target them. So at least, if you remember, one of the generals said that they have to claim different territories in 5 years. So for that they needed a plan, and the plan was to target Muslims at first place, because all Muslim countries have been a target of that. So everywhere Islamophobia is promoted and projected, but we can see it's not only Islamophobia, we can see white supremacy also rising up. We can see the way Hindutva is dealing with the Indians there and the minorities there. It's all linked to how you violate the human rights of the individuals in different states. The seeds of extremism, the seeds of hatred are sown right there as any Muslim person from any part of the world land on any Western soil. The way they are treated on the airports, where people like all the security officers, they look down upon you from head to toe, and you suddenly feel like you are a victim or you have done something bad to these societies or these communities, that they started treating you like that. If you pay attention, the way we pass on different immigrations, if you walk naked, you're acceptable. But if you are worn in such an attire which presents some Muslim ideology or Muslim perceptions, then you are treated differently. Right from there, these extremist ideologies, the way you are maltreated, the way you are mistreated, it keeps on hanging on to the hearts of those people. So it's like even when they are living in those societies, the way they are treated in the Muslim, especially in the Europe, especially in America, in all the Western states, the way they are treated is clearly showing that they are not considered equally important citizens as all other people are living there. So from that, hatred is coming up. But when these grievances grew into a stage where they are then reacting, then they are facing problems with that. So it's all the Western way of creating them first and then maligning them. Their goals are achieved.
So your take on the same point, Imran sir?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I'll like to talk about the philosophical side of this whole how the world is culturalized now. The culture that we are seeing in the world is a type of a world order where the so-called secular ideologies have actually marginalized religious ideologies. This is the basic problem. They think that the people at large have all the rights to do all kind of legislation around the world without accounting for what has been revealed from God Almighty. So that is why what the West has done and rightly so, I would say. They've done the right thing, half of the thing they've done in the right way. I would agree with them. Because of their religious perceptions and their religious, and the cause of their religious perceptions is their own religions. I'm not debating their religion is right or wrong, but whatever the religious communities did to them, they tried to marginalize the secular ideology at some point in time, and as of a reaction, the secular ideologies pushed them back when they got into power through politics. The same thing is happening to Islam and Islamic ideologies, because Islam by the virtue of its nature is not a religion only. It is a whole way of life. It gives you a political ideology as well as a social ideology, as well as the worship ideology, and as well as your faith. So Islam talks about in a complete sense, but when the West comes tries to interact with Islam and Muslims, they think of them as the same way as they think of the church. So here lies the problem, because church went on an extremism ideology, the ideology of extremism. They wanted to impose their ideology over whole of the world as against Islam. Islam never imposes its ideology to whole of the world. It is not a religion. It is not like a religion. It is like a system. Islam is like a system. So the confusion is that we are not able to teach, to confirm, to tell the people in the West, look, Islam is not a mere ideology.
So is it their fault or is it our fault?
It's our fault.
So
we are
why to blame the West then?
The biggest fault of ours is that we have not endeavored, we have not struggled, we have not did the ijtihad for hundreds of years. Anything that you are going to give in the right concept would need power and political force behind it. This is a very important point.
Don't you think, sir, as long as the religion was the dominant factor, was perhaps something which overwhelmed everything, and then the West realized that let's keep the religion away, let's keep the church away from the daily life, and honestly speaking, that is when they started to progress. Over here, sir, I'll just put a question to you, because when you talk about philosophy or you talk about religion, I would say, sir, culture in general has so many components. Culture is determined by the language you speak, the kind of food you eat, the way you dress, it's about your ethics, your values, your norms, and on top, I would say, religion. But sir, interestingly now what we see, because I read about it, and I'm really, somebody who really wants to learn, that religion has overwhelmed everything. Religion was imported. Arabic is not our language, sir. Is it true? People like you who are very well educated, they understand Arabic. A person like me will not. Perhaps only the salat, namaz, as we say, right. I would understand that. Or perhaps a couple of other, I would say, this religious translations, that's how you end up getting the knowledge. But having said that, sir, there seems to be a disconnect, because when you say you're a Muslim, yes, sir, you're supposed to follow certain lines, certain guidelines, there are parameters for you, but Islam is forever. Islam is there, was there, but sir, don't you think the Muslims, they have not accepted that we are living in the 21st century, sir? I mean, things have changed over a period of time, and whenever you see the word terrorist, it is always somebody who looks like the Taliban. The moment you'll put on any movie in which the concept of a terrorist is shown, he has to be somebody from the Middle East or perhaps from Pakistan. You talk to Indians, I mean, their first and foremost important issue with Pakistan is about terrorism. Well, I mean, I'll just give you another example. Looking at the modern world, sir, because we live on earth, whether we like it or we don't. whether we are under pressure or not. That's a separate chapter, we can talk about it. I was just coming and I saw a picture of Asian Darabi, because I knew that was her, because the only thing which was visible were the eyes. So when that kind of a concept is going to be there, sir, and when you will see hundreds of such women, they would reflect as if they are the black widows of Chechnya. You understand my point? Rather than somebody who is talking about the self-determination of a certain land. How many people eventually end up wearing that? 1%? 2%? Why should they be somebody reflecting that they are the right custodian of the religion and I am not, or perhaps Dr. Sahiba is not?
Well, this is, again, I would say the problem is not the dress code with Islam.
So the image, the first look.
Problem is not there. This is not the problem. These are some cultural habits of Muslims that would always be there. Culture has always been there in many forms. Look at this. Islam was born in Saudi Arabia.
And look where Saudi Arabia is going.
Now, Islam went out from Saudi Arabia to whole of the Asia.
Africa.
Even
Europe.
Islam has gone out and people have accepted Islam. People had accepted Islam with their own cultural values. So culture is not at war with Islam, never ever. But what they are trying to do is, what the West is trying to do is, because of that misconception that I have already talked about, I've talked about that they think Islam is has the same dynamics as their own religions. So that is why they end up fighting with Islam. Islam is not like that. Islam, rather, they have, if you see all the modern constitutions, even American Constitution, even the British law, the British constitutions, all those constitutions, you would see the embedded laws and rules of Islam being taken as what word should I use? As we have loaned Islam to them as well. What is Islam? We should understand it. Islam is peace. The only objective of Islam, of coming to this world, is to acquire peace amongst the nations.
Is that what we are reflecting, by the way?
And this is what we are not reflecting. The reason is, I would try to tell you, and Iqbal rightly so said it, Jurme zaifi ki saza marge mafajat. Because you've not done your part in the world. You're not, powerful enough to have peace on your own terms. You'll always
on our own terms. I mean, that is something pretty interesting. We'll be definitely talking about that. Ma'am, your quick comment, and then I'll go to our friend in UK.
Yeah,
please go ahead.
Thank you. Today the problem is that Islam and Muslims, it is more associated with the attire, the way you dress up, the way you talk, and the moment you enter rooms. If you are in abaya, they will simply get it that she's a Muslim. With me, it happened that whenever I travel across the world, people have been asking me, how come you're coming from Pakistan? Because you're not in hijab. And I was like, look, it is the way of life that we carry. It's cultural. It's not important that you have to follow it. You can still be a Muslim if you cover your head or if you don't cover your head. But unfortunately, as Imran Sahab was mentioning, that we have forgotten the true message of religion, that is to bring peace and to have peace. And we have moved on into different nitty-gritties like how you dress up, how you carry yourself, if you are well versed or if you are not. We have forgotten the true image and the true message that Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, has given to us. That please be educated, learn about your religion, and think about it, that what God is asking you to do with other fellow human beings. So we have forgotten the true message of being nicer, be calmer with other people, be tolerant. But we simply say that, okay, if I'm a Muslim, I have to guide you this way and that way. Guidelines are already there in the form of Quran and Sunnah with us. So we have forgotten those values.
Well, coming to you, Dr. Saab, since you live in UK, perhaps one of those countries which has a lot of Muslims, in particular Pakistanis, do you feel that now recently, let's say last 20 years or so, things have really changed for the Muslims out there? This Islamophobia was there, but now it's very obvious. The writing on the wall is pretty bold and clear, sir. Your take?
Well, thank you. I was listening to you, learned scholar. Uh, what I will say is the current situation we have in the world, especially about Islam, is more to, uh, that you are underdogs. You have not yourself in last 100 years. Uh, you were colonized, uh, be it in Africa, be it in Malaysia, Indonesia, Pakistan, India, those countries. So you were in Middle East. So in last 120 or so years, you were colonized. And the worst thing is that those who opened the walls of the forts were the Muslims. You were not defeated in a battlefield. You were you lost your freedom because of the treachery of fellow Muslims, whether it's Mir Jafar, Mir Qasim, uh, Ali al-Khami in Baghdad, uh, or someone else. So, and it's very, very important point. You did not lose your country, your state in the battlefield. You lost because of the treachery of someone. Be it in 1971 in Pakistan, it was Kandar Mirza, Yahya Khan in Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and now Nawaz Sharif, and etc. So the theory is that international strategists and policymakers, they are watching you what you do. They are watching you every day. Your character, how you live, how you behave, how you interact with each other. Islam is, I guess, if you want to know basic principles of Islam, yes, of course. But what's happening in 54 Muslim countries, how they're treating each other, I mean the countries, and how they treat each other as fellow Muslims, then you will know why the Western powers of colonialism have taken over, even after when they gave them freedom. So it is a psychological warfare launched against the Muslims, and blasphemy and Prophet Muhammad's cartoon. They are all part of this psychological warfare. They are checking you out each day and every day. That how you react, how you react if your loved one is targeted. We know that IS is and like KK Ku Klux Klan does not represent Christianity. Similarly, Daesh or ISIS does not represent Islam, Muslims. But when Ku Klux Klan do something far right in USA, nobody is talking them as this group or terrorist group. They call them mentally ill patient. Oh, someone was very upset. Oh, he was lonely. That's why he killed 20 people in a club. This is how the media is shaping the narrative, and also I see in Pakistani media as well, who is blindly following even the same words which they're using in Western media or Western press. So this is, you are having a fundamental problem. You have traitors inside your country who are deliberately, wittingly or unwittingly, becoming part of this whole narrative. We have seen in Afghanistan that the Western powers, the NATO, US, they were defeated. They left because it's not that the Afghans didn't have traitors. They did. Ashraf Ghani or some other people, they were collaborators with the invaders. But the fundamental thing that what is happening to them now, it is a geopolitical thing which is converted into a religious war, which is not true.
One more important point, sir. Saudi Arabia, because we all love Saudis for some reason, perhaps the religion originated from there. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born, and then we talk about the two holy mosques, and obviously King Salman His Excellency is the custodian of those two holy mosques. So everyone has an affiliation with Saudi Arabia. People want to go there, people want to perform, and especially people living in Pakistan, they link themselves with the Saudis in that way. You know, it's an honor for somebody to work in Masjid-e-Nabawi, even as a cleaner, or somebody who is a barber, let's suppose in Haram. So what I'm saying is that now if you look at Saudi Arabia, sir, things are changing. The recent concerts, you talk about Justin Bieber or Salman Khan being there performing with the Indian top actresses, or you're talking about the modernization that is taking place, the new city that is being built, and it is generally perceived that over $500 billion to $1 trillion will be spent there. And last but not the least now, sir, even now we have seen mandirs being open in UAE, and these Saudis are there as well. So what I'm saying is that aren't they deviating from the real practices of Islam? Whereas when we look at the Western world, sir, to be very honest, people say that these Goras, since you live among the Goras, they actually practice the actual Islam. We are called the Muslims, but the real practices are being carried out by the non-Muslims. They don't lie, they given their 100% as far as their work is concerned, and so many other values, norms and ethics they follow. Perhaps they have not been able to say the kalma, but when you talk about the practices, they are there. On contrary, when you talk about the Muslims, they hardly practice anything what the Islam has said, whereas the certain other, I would say, for example, the appearance, for example, keeping a beard or covering the head or wearing a hijab or a burqa for that matter, is that the true reflection of the religion, sir? The appearance or the practices? For you, sir, Dr. Saab?
What I see here is, I'll give you one example. When Golda Meir, the Israeli Prime Minister, when she was buying military equipment from some American, and she said to him, she said that when the Prophet of Islam passed away, he had more than a dozen swords hanging in his house, but he didn't have any gold or silver. What I'm trying to say to you is that what she tried to explain to other people, or what message of the Prophet ﷺ is that your honor, your safety comes first. So be ready for it. Keep your horses and keep your swords and arms ready. That is one thing. So, which means arming yourself, making yourself having the latest equipment to defend your honor and dignity is your fundamental right. You should do it. And that is part of the Islamic principle. Coming to what the Saudis are not the contractors of Islam, basically. Saudis are like anyone else, individuals. They only happen to be responsible of state system they have after the Ottomans. They took, and how they took this control of collaborating with the British Empire. They just renovated the House of Lawrence of Arabia recently, last year. So their actions cannot be condoned. Same time, every Muslim's responsibility to protect the honor and dignity of the two mosques. That is including Pakistan. We will be there in Saudi Arabia, whether the Saudis like it or not. We will be fighting for it, the honor and dignity of the two mosques, because that is nothing to do with the Saudi royal family or whoever they are. It is a principle for all the Muslims all over the world. And Saudis are very well aware with that. So let's not do the Saudi bashing into because of some other countries didn't like them. With regards to the modernization, Saudis are already they are running the fastest train in the world, Mecca and Medina, about 300 miles an hour. There are a lot of modernized equipment they are using to perform the Hajj. So they are modernizing the whole Hajj procedure as well. And I don't see that they should be seen as somebody who's living in a tent. Saudis are very brave and very wise and very enlightened people. And when we see them with the Iranian glasses, then it's look like a little bit tilted. We, at the same time, the Pakistan, the Turks, the Iranians, the British, we are we are there. We know what they're doing, and we should trust. And not only that, we should not expect them to have a Islam which was narrated 1400 years ago. We should understand that Islam is a message which developed. Islam talks about having a good ride, which means having a good horse or a car or a jeep or an aeroplane. Having arm yourself with the latest. It could be a sword, a gun, or a tank, or a missile. So it is Islam is about concept. It's about Islam is modernizing and developing yourself as the time go along. We do not expect the Saudis to live in a tent like the 1400 years ago. Prophet ﷺ time people were living, and the rest of the world moving forward. With regards to the music and cinema, the entertainment, that is debatable because
That
everyone
is
else,
actually the
like
real
in
debate,
for
but
example,
we never talk about that because unfortunately, the moment you start arguing or perhaps putting questions in front of a cleric, sir, he'll come up with certain reasons where, you can't even justify. The problem is that now, we need to talk about it, that what exactly should we do in the current prevailing circumstances. Should we live in the past 1500 years still following that kind of a concept, or since we are born after 1500 years we are different, though we follow
I give you
Islam, but things have
give you
changed.
one
But coming to
example.
you now, sir, I'll just get back to you. Oh, okay, so go ahead, please, go ahead, Dr.
I
Saab,
give
go
you
ahead.
one example. In Bangladesh, in Dhaka, people were, especially men, were peeing in the street. So one of the solutions the Bangladesh government got is they wrote in Arabic on the wall, "Do not pee here." So anyone who was going there, when they wrote written in Arabic, they thought it was something from Quran, and they were abstaining from doing their action. This is the concept we have about Arabic and about
All right,
Islam.
all right, sir. Ma'am, another very important factor, politics and religion. Ma'am, in Pakistan, I think this is the perfect example where we have religious political parties and they are blackmailers, most of them, because they would sell religion just to get votes. Kitab ko vote dein, JUIF, and whosoever is not going to give is going to be somebody who is not from the Muslim
Islam.
community. All right, ma'am? So the case is with so many other things. There's a long list. I can give you so many examples. The point is, ma'am, whom to follow, whom not to follow. This is my biggest concern, because when my kids, they ask me that whatever Maulvi Sahib is teaching us, we cannot understand because this is not our language. And I swear I don't have an answer to address their issue. And at the same time, ma'am, when we say our niyat, we always say that in Urdu or Pashto or Punjabi, but rest of the namaz is in
In
Arabic. So I'm not, what I'm saying is, but we at least we should know what we are saying when we are praying. Unfortunately, this is not the case, because most of these kids who are hafiz Quran in various madrasas, honestly speaking, you talk to them, they're brilliant kids, they are amazing, but they do not even know what they have been reciting over a period of so
Yes.
many years.
I
They do
think-
not even know the meaning.
I think language has always remained a serious concern
Mhm.
for any sort of debate and discussion. For learning something, some cultural values of different states, of different civilizations, we have to learn their language. Unfortunately, for the Indian subcontinent in particular, not the Middle East or all those Arabic countries, we have paid no heed to learning Arabic language. Probably this is the reason now the government of Pakistan is emphasizing on teaching Quranic classes to the students, which is really a good initiative, and I support it very well. The thing is, why Islamophobia? Why we are all the time talking about Muslims, where if we go into learning about Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the 15 commandments of Moses from Adam to Prophet Muhammad, what message they were trying to convey to us? That was peace, tolerance and be kind to one another. When God is always and always asking in the Quran that I can forgive you my rights, but I will never forgive the right of the people that you have violated. Where is this message in a society where our entire focus is on the attire? We don't get into the details of what the Quran is telling us in this age. And when you were having a discussion with Dr. Shahid that we are not in the like the centuries ago that when the religion came in, I believe in that Quran is for all ages.
It is for all ages, but times have changed.
Times have changed, but when you read it in different times, it gives you the same interpretation that is required in that time. This is my belief and faith in. The thing is how you read it. For that, first of all, language, then interpretation of the Quran, the way it is interpreted, not the translation only, interpretation, the depth of it, the getting into the very details of it. And for that, I think you have to not only study the Quran, you have to study all other revealed books as well. Then you will be able to understand what the Quran is telling you. For my thesis, when I had to read different verses from the Quran, I was not understanding the context of it because the language was quite intense for me. Though I was reading in English, but still it was not getting clearer for me what the Quran and Allah is asking me and demanding me to do in different situations. For that, then I had to go back to study Bible. Still the message was not getting clearer. Then I had to go further back and study Judaism. And when I went back there and I studied all of those messages that all these religions, these are all the books of God. So when I went back and I studied, I got the entire context of what actually it is asking me to do. Is it more demanding me to dress like the way some of it's a very sensitive issue. I really respect people who cover their heads and those who don't cover their heads. To me, they all are very important and very respectable. But unfortunately, we have moved our discussion from what we should be doing to live our life, like as we say.
Is it about the attire or is it about the heart?
Heart. To me, it's about your heart. If you cover your head, with all due respect, if you cover your head, cover your body, but you are bad in your heart, to me, you are not a good Muslim.
So you have to work on your soul primarily.
On your soul, on the principles that God has spelled out clearly to you through Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. But we have forgotten all those messages. If you go and check the 15 commandments of Moses, what is asking you to? Exactly the same things Prophet Muhammad is telling you to do.
Most of the religions are very much alike.
It's allied and it's one and the same thing. The divisions, the confusion is all coming where we put restrictions for ourselves and where we are not tolerant towards other people's beliefs and practices, right? So as I was mentioning that why Islamophobia, why only Muslims are targeted, it's more political in nature. It's not something organically happening that Muslims are the intolerant people on the entire face of the earth. No. People like white supremacists. When they'll be suppressed,
they'll be under pressure, they'll also retaliate.
There's an action-reaction phenomena. So it's when they are suppressed, what happened in the white supremacy, they are not Muslims, but they're still doing it most of the time. And trust me, when there was this wave of terrorism throughout the world, whenever there was a bomb blast happening in the Western countries, we were all the time praying, God, please, it shouldn't be any Muslim. It shouldn't be any Muslim name. No matter what part of the world they belongs to, because if it is an English person, the treatment will be different on the media.
He won't be a terrorist.
It won't be. They can call him a terrorist sometime, but they
he
will
is
say,
going to, if it's a white man, no matter how many people he or she kills, it is going to be somebody who has some mental
psychological problem,
psychological issues,
mental disorders, family issue, this issue, that issue. But I would say it's all by design. It's not organically happening.
So you believe that Islam is under some sort of a threat by the Western world, right?
It's under a threat by the Western because we have forgotten our own values. Whatever Prophet Muhammad told us to follow and to do, we have forgotten those. We are not interested in reading the Quran as it is asking us to do. And unfortunately, in this digitalized world where we all got these gadgets, and I always call them a bombshell, in our hands, when we have exposed our youngsters, our youth to these gadgets, where in the hybrid warfare age, narratives are beautifully displayed there and placed there on the media.
All right. Now, Imran Sahab, another very important point. If you remember, sir, when our Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, 2 years ago, went to the United Nations to address the General Assembly, sir, and we learned something about really interesting. And that was about an initiative taken by our own Prime Minister, Imran Khan, about Islamophobia, and he wanted to open up a channel so that these concepts should be cleared. So the Turkish government, Mr. Erdogan himself, Mahathir Mohamad, who was the ruler of Malaysia at that time, they all got together, but the Prime Minister did not go, because later on we got to know that because of the pressure from the Saudis, that was perhaps the reason. But anyway, they took the initiative, they went forward. Now my point is, sir, that if we see Saudi Arabia, because when you talk about OIC or you talk about the Arab League or Gulf states for that matter, Saudi Arabia, whether you like it or you don't, is the leader, sir, is the leader of the Ummah. Perhaps they have got a lot of oil, a lot of money, a lot of influence.
Because of the
That is what matters.
that they have. Because of the two holy
And
mosques
that is
they
another
have.
reason which I mentioned earlier. But the point is now, sir, either we should follow them or we should have our own version of the religion now. Because it seems that there is going to be a split soon, sir. Because whatever is happening too quickly in Saudi Arabia. And a lot of Pakistanis, they have started pointing fingers. You know, either you believe in the concept of Arabi and Ajami, because they always would consider you as a second grade Muslim, sir, that is a reality. Because we should, you know, start understanding what realities are all about. So quick comment, because I'm totally running out of time. I also would
I'll
like
try
to
to. It
Please
is
go ahead.
far more complicated. I don't know why do you ask complicated questions to me.
because so you are here, you know, somebody who's representing the religion.
So first of all, I do not regard Saudis as Muslim leaders. They are part of the Ummah, and from true Islamic concept, Islam is a system based off meritocracy. Only that person is going to serve as a leader. Mark my words, serve as a leader, not lead as a leader, rather serve as a leader who is going to think about whole of the Ummah. This is one thing. Saudis, they are our brothers. Turks, they are our brothers. Malaysians, they are our brothers. Bengalis, they are our brothers. Come what may, they are our brothers. They are this is all one Muslim brother. And this was the message of universality of humanism of Islam. Even we regard as non-Muslims as the Ummah, but it is part of the non-Muslim Ummah. But they are Ummah ad-Dawa. We are Ummah al-Ijaba. So Islam talks about universality, right? This is the true concept of Islam. If anybody, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, O people. Islam addresses people. Islam addresses humanity.
Never says, "O Muslim."
It says, O Muslims, but when there's a law coming in. But when they are talking to non-Muslims, they are always talking about aqaid, not salah, right? So I would say that the leadership of Islamic world would come in the hands of those people who are going to take care by compassion of Ummah. And this idea of Pakistan came out of slavery. We became Pakistan because we went into a freedom struggle against colonialism. So we in our constitution we talk about Muslim brotherhood. So we should not have, even if somebody does have disparity or some kind of pride in some kind of tribe or some kind of their language abilities, but the true Islamic value does not lies in languages, color, creed, rather in meritocracy.
All right, sir. Last comment from you, Dr. Shahid. Now let me put this question to you, sir. The question is that there is no concept, I have never heard about the Christian Ummah. But sir, it seems that the entire Christian community is like this. If there is an issue, it is going to be either raised in United Nations or perhaps at the top forums. When you talk about the Islamic concept, sir, the Muslim Ummah, sir, it seems that this OIC concept, I mean, it doesn't even exist. Do you still believe that there is a concept such as Muslim Ummah that exists and that prevails? Is there any?
Well, the reason you had just adding something, the Saudi pressure on you because you didn't have the money. So if you could control corruption in your home, until 1956, Pakistan used to give zakat to Saudis every year.
Dubai was
They used to come here
a
and
place where they were only fishermen. Things have changed now.
yeah. Okay,
I
so
mean,
coming to
China
your question,
I mean, those people were addicted to opium. Now it's a different world. Why do we live in the past? Let's talk about the present, sir.
I just give you where they were and where we are. We need to know about it. Coming back to your original question, if you see the symbols, you will know that there is a Christian Ummah, there is a Christian brotherhood, there is a Christian unity in European Union, in members' flags. All these flags have cross on it, including my own British flag.
He's done.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much, Imran Saab, for your presence. I think, sir, this really needs a lot of time to cover.
And it's a very sensitive
It's a very,
issue.
By the
ma'am,
way, what
nothing
we have
is
done-
sensitive, ma'am. We have made it
what
sensitive.
we have done to Islam, we have done the same balatkar to democracy.
Well, again, very debatable.
Yeah, we are doing all these things.
Well,
I
Imran
can-
Saab, thank you very much, sir, for your presence, ma'am. It was a pleasure having
Thank
you.
you.
Dr. Shahid, thank you so much for your time. And that's all we have for this, sir. I'll see you, inshallah, tomorrow at 8:05. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.